Okay, so in 2008, when Paul went down to LA to live with your dad. Okay, so when Paul graduated from high school, he didn't want to do nothing. So he did get the scholarship to this art school in LA for the summer after he graduated. And then I suggested to him that he go to the college that I went to, Mount Sac, and live with Tony, because Tony had room. I had been down there, and it was like, okay, and it was a good match because then Tony would have someone there. Paul didn't want to do it, but I convinced him to do it by saying that I would go down there with him and stay with him in LA. Okay, so he was like, okay, I did that, but he did, I'll do that, but I couldn't go the first semester. I had stuff going on here. I couldn't leave. And so then I took the dogs, I took my cats, and we moved to LA. I went and lived with Paul for the first time since he was a baby in your dad's house. And 10 days after we got there, you know, Tony, me and Paul were going to the beach. We had been staying there and going to the beach, and Paul going to school a lot. And we were getting ready to go to the beach, and Tony looked bad and like couldn't move, couldn't get out of bed, and I was like, I can't leave him like this, you know. So I called 911, and they came and got him and took him by ambulance to the emergency room, and he had a blocked intestine, and they operated on him right away. And me and Paul went and visited him every day in the hospital, and Steve told me that he was going to pay me to take care of Tony. He was going to pay me $125 a week to take care of Tony, and $125 a week for bills for his expenses, food, his tobacco, all that, right? So I was like, sure, okay, because I was going to be with Paul, and I was loving taking care of Tony. And let me tell you this. So when Paul was going to school, I would stay home and take care of Tony, and I made him happy. I remember when he took me to Disneyland, and he was always good to me. And I remember when he said, oh, your mom, Rebecca, said, you don't treat him well enough. And Tony said, I've never told him no, and I wouldn't tell him no. And when he said that, I was listening, and I said in my head, that's true. He's never told me no. He's always been good to me. And I remember thinking when I was with Tony, if we were driving in the car and I had asked him, if I had said, can you turn right here, he would have did it. He was just like, he was just good to me. Anyway, so I remember that. And so when I went to take care of him, I gave it all back and more. I treated him so good. I made him the food that he liked to eat. I sat and smoked with him. We sat in the front yard and smoked. I made sure he had whatever he wanted, food, water, you know. I made sure that he was comfortable, and I delighted in making him meals that I knew that he was going to enjoy. You know, I would fix it up all nice, and because I got to know what he liked. And I remember one time giving him his lunch, and he goes, you should be a chef. And I said, you know what, Grandpa, I could be anything I want, and you know what, I'm already doing it. And oh, here's one thing you don't know. God told me to dose him with marijuana, and I did. I gave him a big dose of butter with pot in it and on his toast, and I remember him going, I feel weird, I don't know what's going on. I said, don't worry, Gramps, I'm taking care of you. I put him in the recliner, and I said, I'm taking care of you, don't worry, you're fine. And then after a little while, he went to bed. And then the next day, I gave him a little tiny bit. And you know what? Within 4 days, he was 10 years younger. He was smiling. He was happy. He was walking around real good. He was eating good. And it was at this point that your brother went on the bender for 10 days. It was during that time. Steve didn't show up for work, didn't call work, didn't call his girlfriend, didn't call us, was supposed to bring us food and money, and was gone for 10 days. Couldn't get a hold of him. And you know what? Steve had told me that I was in his inheritance and that he had a lot of money. And that I was in line to get it. So when he went on that bender, I was like, I know what he's doing. He's done this before. He's drinking himself to death, you know. And so I called the sheriff or the police where he lives and told him to go check on him. And they gave him a 5150. They took him to the emergency room. And he had a 5150 before, which means you can't legally own guns. Oh. And it's like for 3 years or 10 years, I'm not sure. But he was just out of it, and now he had a bunch of guns. So I take him, and now they give him a 5150, and he can't own guns. And he's got a lot of guns. I mean, I'm telling you, that was Steve's only pleasure in life, was shooting guns at paper targets. He loved it, and he had thousands of dollars worth of guns. So, he showed them to me. Oh, one time, me and Paul were home, and he thought he could beat me up like he used to when I was little. And I told him, I'm a grown man now, and I'm a trained fighter, and like, you have no idea what I'm like now. And he acted all tough, and I said, you want to see what it's like? And he's like, yeah, you know. So I grabbed him behind the neck, and I threw him around like a rag doll. And it scared him, right? So the next day he comes in with his gun. And he's like, what would you do now? So I come home and I get my gun. And now I'm thinking, we're both armed. And I was thinking, we might shoot it out. You know, I mean, Paul's there. He's threatening with a gun. We're living in this house. And I'm thinking, yeah, there could be a shootout, you know. And I'm going through scenarios of how shit could go down and what I'm going to do. In our own house, where Paul's going to college. All right. So Tony starts to feel a lot better and look a lot better, and Steve wants him to take a shower, right? And Tony's not taking showers very often, and I told Steve he needs one of those seats that old people have in the shower, and he's like, make him take a shower now. We'll get the seat when we get it. And I said, no. You know, he needs to have that seat first. And then Steve said, well, if he won't take a shower, take away his tobacco. And I said, I'm not gonna do that. You know, if he asks me for something, I'm not gonna tell him no. And on Father's Day, we were having this conversation. He says, then get the fuck out. We left that day. So 3 days before that, me and Paul went to Walmart, and when we got back, the fire department was there. Tony had fallen inside the screen door, and the door was open, the screen door was locked, and the neighbors came and seen him on the floor and called 911. The fire department came. It's a big crowded neighborhood. It's the hood. Came and busted down the back door so they can get to him. All right, so that's 3 days before. So the whole neighborhood knows we don't have a back door now. Oh. Right? And the whole neighborhood knows he's got a lot of guns, right? And he tells us to leave, and then he leaves. So we're packing up all our shit, and I'm thinking, this neighborhood knows there's guns in here. This neighborhood knows there's no back door. This neighborhood knows that there's an old man in here. This neighborhood's gonna come and get those guns. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, so that those guns don't get to go either to cops, because now Steve has a 5150, or the criminals around the neighborhood. I'm going to take the guns, right? At least they're safe, right? So I take the guns, I take Paul, I take the dogs, I leave the cat, because we don't have room. I leave 3 cats on the roof. Aww. Or 2 cats. 2 cats on, no, 2 or 3, I can't remember, but on the roof. And I can't help it. We got to go, you know, left them on the roof, left them as much food as we could and put water up there, but couldn't help it. That's what we were doing. So Steve was like, he calls us and he's like, you got my guns? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And he's like, I want him back. And I'm like, okay, you can have him back. Come and get him. You know, like, he wanted me to bring him back. I'm like, I can't go down there right now. You know, I don't have the money. You know, oh, that was the other thing. He was supposed to pay me $150 a week to watch Tony, and $150 or $125 a week for the bills and food and all that. And right away he started cheating me. You know, oh, well, this and this, I'm not going to pay you that for this. And I'm like, you know what, Steve? I really need this money to pay my property taxes because I was close to losing the property. I need this money to pay my property taxes, and I'm your nephew, you know, and I'm not asking you for money that you didn't already say that I was going to earn. So he started cheating me right away. So anyway, but Steve tells us to leave on Father's Day, 2008. And me and Paul go, and I take all the guns and my dogs, and we leave. And Paul's, oh, the other thing is there was that murder on the front of right in the front yard. I don't know if you know about this, but there was a boy shot right in front of the house, and Paul was in the beach and I was home, and I went out there and I was the first person there, and the guy was lying on his bike and bleeding, and so I took the bike out and I laid him down, and he had a big hole in his head right here, and it was coming out the back, and it was all bloody. That was very traumatic for me. I was the first person there. It was traumatic for Paul. We both wanted out. We both wanted out of there, and we got back to Yosemite, and we were going to the Yosemite Indian ceremony on Father's Day weekend, and Paul was just like, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm here. It was a good experience going there, and I'm glad I got to see where you came from and all that, but this is home. So okay, so here I have the guns, and Steve goes, I want him back. And I went back to LA, but I didn't have the guns with me because I didn't want to carry them. Because he's a 5150, and those guns are like reported stolen now, right? So I go back to LA and I tell him, come and get your guns. You know, they're at my house. I'll give them to you. And I get the cats and the rest of my stuff. And he follows me up from LA. And he gets here, and I try to tell him where to go get the guns, because the guns weren't on my land. I buried them in the forest, and I was trying to give him the instructions on how to go get his guns. And he was like, I couldn't talk to him, much less did I want to give him a bunch of guns. So he leaves, and he goes to the sheriff's, and the sheriffs come up here, and they're like, do you have his guns? And I'm like, nope. Which was true. I didn't have them. They were buried in the forest. And they say, I forgot what else that they said, but I think they said something like, did you take his guns? And I said something like, do you think I'm stupid enough to tell you if I took his guns? He goes, no, nope. So I couldn't give him back his guns, even though I tried, and then he died. You know, I mean, so I got a bunch of his guns, but because they were buried, a bunch of them got messed up. I didn't get all of them. He had a lot of guns. I just got the ones that I could find. He had some locked cabinets and stuff like that. I couldn't get into those. The ones that were loose, I just grabbed those because you know, I was thinking the whole neighborhood was going to take them. Anyway, so that's how that all went down. Yeah, and now if whatever you heard before, this is my version of what happened.